Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. Attracting staff shouldn't just happen when the immediate need arises. It's an ongoing pursuit of networking and building your talent bench. Then it's a process of assessing and coaching your talent. But how do you do that effectively? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. From your A players to your C and toxic C players, assessment is crucial. Even your high performers who miss the mark culturally need to be accountable. Mike Goldman is a leadership team coach, speaker and author of the #1 best-selling book, Breakthrough Leadership Team, and he has more than 30 years coaching and consulting under his belt. He says that coaching staff can improve performance, but only if you're coaching effectively, and he outlines how to do this a bit later. But first, he tells me how a business can make sure they're attracting and retaining top talent.
The first thing they need to do is get more proactive about the talent they need for the team. And what I mean by that is if we have a need today and we say, let's put out a job posting and hire a recruiter and go do it, we're going to be challenged to hire a lot quicker than we should. We're going to be tempted to hire the wrong person because it takes time, as it should, to find the right people. So what I suggest is companies get more proactive about the structure of their team going out to the future. If I'm going to grow at this rate, if I'm going to have this number of clients, if I'm going to have this number of employees, what does my organization need to look like at that point? So I may know 6, 9, 12, 15 months before I have a need that I will have that need. So let's start grooming somebody internally for that now. Let's start talking to folks now, building what's called a virtual bench. Virtual bench means before you have a need, talk to the people you know. Hey, who's a superstar that I ought to be talking to? Even before you have a need, talk to them, build those relationships. The term I used to hear is dig the well before you're thirsty, right? So if you're proactive in structuring the team, you could be proactive in finding the right people so you're not rushed. And that goes along with building the right culture within your organization that will attract the right people. A players are going to attract other A players. So if you have a bunch of B and C players in your organization, you're going to have to do some real work to fix that problem before you think you can attract the right top talent.
So then you have your talent, you have the team. How can you better assess their talent?
The assessment is so important. What I suggest and what I do with all of my leadership teams that I work with is we do what I call a quarterly talent assessment. And on that talent assessment, and we use a tool I've created, but there are any number of tools out there to assess the folks within your organization. And I have the leaders assess one level down, all of their direct reports, have them assess who are their A, B, and what I call toxic C players in their organization. And the importance is in this tool, or having the right tool, is that most organizations typically say, if someone's incredibly productive and they're meeting all their goals, they're A players. Well, I believe that's only one axis to look at. The other is, how well are they living the core values of your organization? How are they behaving? Are they adding to your culture? Improving your culture? Are they models for your culture? Or are they hurting your culture? Are they toxic to the organization? You've got to look at both of those things. And even if you've got someone who is super high performing from a productivity standpoint, if they're not living your non-negotiable core values, they don't belong in your organization. Your core values become a joke. Your culture becomes a joke if you let them stick around because they're bringing, a lot of money in. So I have, quarterly leaders assessing their folks, A, B, C, toxic C, and then I have them working to make some difficult decisions on what actions they need to take for those folks. And part of the power of doing it quarterly is not only does that assessment change quarter by quarter, but doing it quarterly allows the folks around the table to hold each other accountable for taking those actions they committed to take on their A players, their B players, their C players, and their toxic C players.
So then what are some of those specific actions that leaders should be taking to develop and improve the team?
I think it starts with A players. And most folks say, wait a minute, the actions are, you got to get rid of your C players. What are you doing? And we'll get there. But the worst thing you can do for your superstars, the worst thing you could do for your A players is say, oh, thank God I've got Nicole. She's an A player. I don't need to worry about her. That's the worst decision you could make because, by the way, who are the folks who are most likely to get a call from a recruiter today to go make double their salary somewhere else? Your A players. Who are the folks that you need to leverage to become great? Your A players. Who are the folks that are going to attract other A players? A players. So the most important thing you can do is make sure you're re-recruiting your A players. You're working on career plans with your A players. You're challenging them. You're rewarding them. You are giving them more responsibility. You're giving them ideas for further development. So there's a whole bunch of actions for your A players, and I believe that's most important. Secondly, for your B players, your B players are B players either because their productivity isn't where you want it to be, or maybe they've got some work to do on the core values. So for B players, it's about either coaching them to become A players, or it might be about changing their role. Maybe their productivity is not where you want it to be because you're not leveraging their strengths. Maybe they're not great at closing deals, so they're not a great salesperson, but they're unbelievable at building relationships. Maybe they'd have a great career over on the service side of the house, but not the sales side of the house. And then we get to the C and the toxic C players where you've got two choices. You're either going to coach them or you're going to cut the cord and send them off to go work for the competition. Now, here's the key. I have seen for C players, toxic C players, I have seen organizations live with those folks for 6, 9, 12, 18 months without doing anything because they're afraid to make a move. I challenge my leaders, if they categorize someone as a C player, and I say, okay, are you going to coach them or are we cutting the cord? And they say, I really believe I could coach them. That's beautiful. These are human beings. We should be coaching them. We have some responsibility for helping them improve. So great, we're going to coach them. But remember I said we do these talent assessments every quarter. So you're going to coach them. But here's the commitment you're going to make. We're going to come back and redo this 90 days from now. If they are still a C player, and you still think they need more coaching, you might be the C player. And that typically gets some oohs and ahs, as it just did from you. Yeah. And that's, I'm being kind of a jerk, but purposefully, because that kills your company. And if you keep your C players too long, who does that hurt most? Your A players, who either look at that and say, this isn't the right place for me, I'm leaving, or, hey, why am I working so hard? And they become a B player. So you've really got to take care of those C players and coach them up, which is great, or coach them out.
So, Mike, are there other things that businesses can be doing to develop their people?
Absolutely. One of the skills that is really in need of improvement in most organizations I've seen is coaching skills. And that goes for A players, B players, C players. Everybody needs coaching. And the mistake folks make is they think coaching is, did you get this done? Why didn't you get it done? Did you get that? I mean, that's holding people accountable. They also think coaching is giving advice. I can't figure out how to get this project done. Okay, I'm going to give you a little seminar on how to manage a project, and that's going to solve the problem. Meanwhile, you're not even solving the real issue. So we tend to want to give advice when what we really need to be doing is asking questions. That's what coaching is all about. Someone knocks on your door, or these days, There are no doors they're knocking on. They get on a Zoom call or a phone call, and they say, I'm really having a challenge with this. You need to, and I'll quote a gentleman, actually an Australian author, Michael Bungay Stanier, who wrote a great book called The Coaching Habit, says you need to stay curious longer. You may think you know the answer and you want to send them on their way, but if you give them an answer, you may be solving the wrong problem, because by the way, that person that came to you and said, I'm having problem getting this project done, it had nothing to do with project management skills. It may have had to do with the fact that they don't agree with the success metrics of the project. It may be they're having a problem getting along with their co-lead on the project. It may be any number of problems, but you want to give people advice very quickly and send them out the door. So number one, you may be solving the wrong problem. And number two, if every time you come to me with a problem, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of advice and send you on your way, what am I training you to do? I'm training you to come to me whenever you have a problem. That takes a lot of time. I'm also training you, if my advice doesn't work, you can come to me and say, what else could I do? So what you want to do is get really skilled at asking the right questions to get to the heart of the problem. One of the great questions Michael Bungay Stanier uses is, what's the real challenge here for you? That's a beautiful question. And what you're doing is not only then solving the right problem, but by asking questions, what you're doing is you're modeling a way of thinking for your people. So the next time they're much more likely to solve it themselves.
That was Mike Goldman, leadership team coach, speaker and author. To learn more about how Mike can transform your team, or to order his book, Breakthrough Leadership Team, head to mike-goldman.com or to the links in the show notes of this episode. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.